Hey there, Mark Brown. Last week, we talked about Core 1 and Core 2, structure and stories. Today, we're going to go into Core 3 and Core 4. Let's open the door.
Let's do it.
Anyone can give a presentation. Few deliver unforgettable presentations. What's the difference? You're about to find out. Welcome to the Unforgettable Presentations Podcasts with your hosts, world champion speakers and coaches Mark Brown.
Your life tells a story, and there's someone out there who needs to hear it.
And Darren LaCroix.
Stage time, stage time, stage time.
Ready for some powerful presentation ahas? Let's dive right in.
All right, last week talked about Core 1, structure, the importance of structure. Core 2, stories. If you didn't hear those, please go back and listen to episode 216. This is episode 217. Mark, let's dive right in. Core 3, humor.
Oh.
Talk to me, Goose.
You want me to talk to you, Maverick. Oh, nice Top Gun reference there. Here's the funny thing, folks. One or two of us was a professional, semi-professional comedian with a photograph on the wall of a local comedy club. And guess what? It was not I. It was somebody else. And he wants me to lead on humor. I keep telling you, Darren, I am not funny. I'm just funny looking. Okay. So I don't lead that Core 3 call on the third Wednesday of the month. And for those who are just joining us, we mentioned, I know, bad. But for those just joining us, we mentioned the Core 4. There's 4 core elements that we build our speeches on. We build our book about delivering unforgettable presentations around a structure. And the Core 4 are the rudiments that build a great presentation. Core 3 is humor. I was not being very humorous just now, but people ask, do I really need humor in my presentation? I'm not very good at it. Do I really need humor, Darren? What do you say?
Well, it's an old adage in the National Speakers Association. Only if you want to be paid. And I'm going to take humor and back it up just a little and say humor and engagement and interaction. If you're not funny, but you like engagement, or you can get the audience to participate, that works. It's about engagement. Now, we teach formulas that help you get it across to your audience and your subject and your style. So Mark, I have a keynote coming up next week. I have my notes right over here. And there's one of the guys I'm interviewing. So, I always ask for people's names to call ahead of time because I want to see what their stories are and how I can take their stories and connect it to my world. Well, one guy, I kid you not, his name is 7 letters long, but he has all these designations. He has 23 letters after his name. I'm not even exaggerating, but
that's funny.
So I'm going to go out into the audience and find, he's a cool guy. I'm going to talk to him, get some of his stories, but then I'm going to, at the beginning of my presentation, go out, engage, break the fourth wall, walk into the audience, and then highlight that, but in a playful, fun way to help create that connection.
Yeah.
One of the things my mentor taught me early on, humor mentor, her name is Rosemary Very. She says, the problem is funny. The solution is serious. The problem is funny. We make light of the problem, the frustration, the conflict, the things that bug them. So I'm asking people, what are your frustrations? What are your pet peeves? So when I find their frustrations and their pet peeves, so my interview yesterday, I won't mention the client or the person's name. They said, yeah, every year we have one guy come in and he gives the quote unquote compliance report. He said he scares everyone because if you're out of compliance, you could be out of business.
Exactly.
And so I saw that. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but that's going to be something. But I've trained myself because of my comedy humor training to find the frustration. And get this, if you're taking notes, comedy cuts down, humor lifts up. Comedy cuts down, humor lifts up, which means we're finding the stress, we're finding the tension, and then we're putting a pin in it to release that tension. So a comedian, there's a victim. That's perfect in the comedy world. People understand that. That's
Don
acceptable.
Rickles. Don Rickles is good.
In the corporate world, unless you're brought in for a specific reason, humor allows us to be more engaging, to be more likable, to create a deeper connection. I love what sales guru Jeffrey Gitomer says. At the end of laughter is the height of listening. At the end of laughter is the height of listening. So after a big laugh, that's when you slide your message in. So we don't have to become comedians, but there are comedy principles that can help lighten up or bring levity to a tough subject. Mark?
And before you dive into that, Darren, I want to go back to what you said about comedy cuts down, humor lifts up. To some, that could be slightly confusing, particularly those who say, well, there's something funny about the company or how they operate their business that I could really jump on. But we have to be careful that the humor we use, though it may seem somewhat to be at their expense, is not received as such. And I'm gonna publicly pay my brother Darren a compliment here, because I know several years ago he did one of the most, to me, humorous but educational bits I've ever seen him do. I've seen anybody do, actually, and I really appreciate humor and comedy. And he's wondering, what am I talking about? But you were engaged to do a presentation for an association, and as we all know, association love their acronyms. You were the ABC and the QVC. We love acronyms. And you spent, I don't know, 8-9 minutes on a routine about acronyms used within the organization, and they were laughing like crazy, and nobody was offended. And I say that because it's easy to cross a line between being funny and being offensive, particularly in the corporate world, even in real life, if we're not very careful. And I know we didn't really plan on doing this, Darren, but could you share very quickly the thought process behind using one of their pet peeves, the acronyms, in a way that kind of made fun of them, but didn't insult them, that made them laugh? How did you find that balance to create that routine?
Well, it's finding that connection with the audience and asking them. And what I did was I asked, okay, who are the new people here to this association? So a few people raised their hand, and I said, this is for you. You might have come from another industry and then not realized, oh my gosh, these acronyms, how do I figure out my way through them? What do they mean? What is their importance? So I created a routine years ago, and I just keep upgrading it and applying it to new audiences. So I had the structure of the comedy about acronyms, and then I just apply the acronyms from that industry, and it really goes well and is fun. So it's also the intention behind it. Mark, I remember when Johnny Carson retired, late night comedy show host. If you are
legendary,
you might not know him, but he used to be, before Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon, he was their hero. But Johnny, when he retired, I remember watching it, and they said, what's your secret? And he thought about it and reflected and said, I always played up to my audience. I've always played up. So there's a comedy idea that you can punch up, but you can't punch down. Meaning you can punch and make light of the CEOs and the VPs, but you can't make fun of frontline workers. You have to punch up to people who are above you, as opposed to. And then whenever I get something that I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. So one of the things I do in the acronym bit is I speed up at the end, and I say da 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 da, and I always say, bring up one thing that drives them crazy. So one of the common ones in many organizations is Sarbanes-Oxley, something like that. And it's, litigation, legislation that they have to go by, blah, blah, blah. So it always stresses people out, and especially when I talk to people. So I say, Sarbanes-Oxley, and I say, Sarbanes-Oxley sucks. And always gets a huge thing, but I always run it by the event planner if I'm not sure. If it's not blatantly clear, and even if it is, sometimes I just double check because I never, I go through EIO, and I end on that. I'm like, EIO, what? Like, anyway, I tie back to common acronyms that we've all heard: BINGO, BS, BS.
SOL.
So yeah, SOL. So I have fun with it, but it's intended. Now, I don't do that everywhere because some industries aren't riddled with acronyms.
Appropriate.
But
Okay.
if they are riddled with acronyms, chances are it frustrates some people, especially the newer people, because they're overwhelmed, which is why I set it up the context. So last week we talked in stories, how you set up the context to get us curious to want to hear it is important. Well, same thing, how you set up a bit that you're going to do. Now, remember, you don't have to, we're not trying to make you comedians, but you have to be aware that if you're going to be a true pro and get paid, it's expected that you bring in some levity. Now, if you don't know how to do that, Mark, I don't know if you saw Judy's speech, her first speech, she sent it out where she had hired Chris McGuire, comedy writer, to punch up her speech. Oh my goodness, she had some hysterical lines that he wrote for her. So why not bring in a pro to help you if you're not sure if that's not your strength? That's what we're talking about in the core four. If one of them isn't your strength, get help in that area. Just because you can do, maybe you're a great storyteller, you're a classic storyteller, but if you tell your stories without structure, we're still going to be scratching our heads, even though you're a great storyteller. Got to get help in the core four that aren't our strength, but continue to improve what is our strength. Mark?
Yeah, and I like the idea of looking at our strength. And you may say, you know what? I'm naturally funny. I'm gonna slay this thing. And you have cautioned, Darren, that those who think they're funny as comedians often struggle with humor in a presentation. Why do you think that is?
Well, sometimes being off the cuff, they might be really good at that. The planned humor is where they're maybe lacking. And that's what we heard the other gentleman, won't mention his name, from our event last week, who is a naturally funny guy. He had some funny lines, but he, needed some help and wanted some help, which that's awesome. Get help. Perfect. Nobody cares. Nobody said to Judy, hey, did you have a comedy writer help you? They just appreciated the humor.
They liked it. Yeah.
That was humor for those of you who don't know her. She talks about depression. Like, that's a heavy subject.
It is. Yeah.
When you can make a heavy subject lighter, oh my goodness. Powerful. So core 3, humor and engagement. However we can get our audience engaged and connected. If it's not your strength, get some help. Chris McGuire, if you go to getaspeakingcoach.com, he is a head writer for a lot of late night comedy shows, wrote a lot of the comedy roasts, produced some TV shows including Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. He made Martha Stewart funny, which was awesome.
Yeah.
He understood her as a character, so he knew how to write for her. So that being said, get some help. You can go to getaspeakingcoach.com, check out Mark, me, but I'm not going to do comedy writing for you. It's not my
Neither am I.
But Chris will, Chris McGuire. So core 3. All right, Mark, let's go to core 4. Core 4.
Core 4, delivery. What do I do on stage today?
No, that's really OTT, which means over the top.
Well, we see that. We done an episode not too long ago about speaker man or speaker woman going over the top, and their delivery is so commanded,
yes,
so dictator, so ultimate expert. Look, your delivery matters. Your intention matters, and your intention is part of that delivery. One of the things Mark and I do when we coach is we coach from a coaching checklist. We have a 3-day event called Own the Stage, which we work right off the 49-point checklist. So delivery, we step back and we look at, okay, here's what we have. How do we make it better? Well, let's look at our 49-point checklist. Must have, must avoid. We have a list of must-haves and a list of must-avoids. And we see the same ones over and over again around the world. Mark and I have coached in Europe. We've coached all over the world.
Asia,
and we
yes.
see the same issues again and again. But delivery is so important. And one of the things we teach is, like, you just went through our workshop last week. You got a brand new keynote. You got to internalize it. So at the beginning, you're in your head thinking of what you're going to say next, but you've got to internalize it. So don't beat yourself up. Congratulations, you're human. You've got to own it. You want to own the stage, you got to own your content, which is why structure is important, which is why storytelling is important, core 1 and 2. It's important and critical, and let it go at the beginning. If you're in your head, your emotions are dead. If you're in your head, your emotions are dead. So if we want to be present with the audience and have that connection, have that delivery, we also got to take our time and let them absorb what we're saying. So part of delivery goes right back to structure. When you tell certain stories, when you ask certain questions, the old Boston term, ask and then shut up. Shut up. Let them think. Mark, I was coaching a pastor, not that I had permission to, but I was coaching a young pastor and taking notes. I couldn't help it because his mentor was open to what I had to say about it because he knew what I did. So I said, he's going so rapid fire, he's not letting us think. And we say the most important part of the process is the thought process in the listener's mind. So if you don't have somebody helping you slow down and deliver, guess what the thought process is? I can't keep up with this. You ask a question, you don't let me think. Okay. And they lean back and they're leaning out.
They check out, yeah.
And you may have heard the old adage, pause for effect. Well, we say, no, that's drama. That's theater. Pause to reflect. Pause to let your audience reflect and absorb the key lines. We have to know what those killer lines are, which is why, like, when I write, I go and I ask the audience. I will deliver it. I will go to Toastmasters and practice, and I will ask them, what inspired you? What made you think? What was unclear? And what I'm looking for is, I'm hoping I get my foundational phrases back at me. But I don't know which ones will land. When I was working on 17 Minutes to Your Dream, it was, you are the CEO of your life, of your dream. And that resonated. So I knew I was hitting a right one. So a few of them that I wanted to hit didn't. Well, how am I going to know what the audience thinks unless I deliver and ask? Part of upgrading your delivery is seeing what's landing, with asking for that feedback. Again, 3 questions that I ask. Well, I asked 4, but the first 3, what did you think? What made you think? What was unclear? And then what inspired you? And then the 4th question is just anything else.
Anything else.
And
open window.
Yeah. And so what I'm looking for is commonality. When I start, and Mark, like when you first helped me, we talked about structure last episode. When we had that, I had my second fall in the middle and you helped me move it to the end. Well, my ending was anticlimactic. I thought the Robert Goddard quote that I used originally was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant. That's the reason I wrote the speech. Well, nobody ever gave me that as feedback. And so I tried it a few times. I tried it a few more times, and I didn't want to give up. The downside of being an optimist. But then I had to come to the realization that the second fall was stronger and that quote needed to go. It inspired the speech. It did its job. Now I need to let it go. Let it go.
From Frozen, huh? A couple of thoughts here, Darren. I know they're individuals. Perhaps they're new and they see whom they determine to be great speakers. They admire their style and their delivery, and the desire is, I want to deliver like Mark Brown, Darren LaCroix, like Les Brown, like Dean Graziosi, or these big names that we know. They're great presenters, and we admire from afar, which is fine. But I always say part of effective delivery, and please hear my heart with this, friends, part of your effective delivery is you bringing your personality to every presentation. Not everyone will deliver with the same style. Some see vibrant and think, I need to be vibrant to be effective. Really? Ask comedian Stephen Wright. If you don't know who he is, search on Vimeo or YouTube or whatever other video service you might find, free video, and look at Stephen Wright's delivery. The man is downright hilarious, but he is the most deadpan, low-key personality you will see, but he's just very effective because that's him, and in his delivery, his personality works. We often think we must deliver based upon what the words say. Yes, we should, but we have to bring ourselves, our own personality, our own style, who we are to every presentation. To me, one of the worst things I could hear is that when someone hears me speak is, you know what? Mark Brown reminds me of that guy. I don't want to be that guy. I really want to be seen as an individual for what I bring and how I bring it. Let's not take delivery lightly. And let's not be overly concerned about trying so hard to be effusive or trying so hard to be poignant. Who are you really? And when you deliver your presentation as yourself, that makes you more credible because the audience sees you in the way that you deliver. Conversely, if we deliver in one single style the entire presentation, it can be monotonous either low-key monotonous, or always upbeat for the whole presentation, which is emotionally exhausting to see someone do that. Your delivery of the lines you deliver, and I shouldn't say lines, but the content you deliver, the way you deliver the content should be commensurate or congruent with what you are saying. When you portray a character, we're not saying you would be overacting. No, we're saying relive that character and speak as that character with the emotion of that character within the context of the situation in which they find themselves. This may sound like a mouthful, and perhaps it is, but it is a rudimentary principle that when you become the characters and not simply retell, but relive stories, then you create a more realistic experience for the audience. You may not be telling a story or becoming a character. You may simply be sharing an idea, a principle, a technique that the audience needs to hear. We'll share that idea, that principle, that technique, as you would sharing with a friend over a cup of coffee or lunch one day. Be genuinely, authentically you in your delivery. And it's remarkable how much the audience will embrace you because they know that was that individual honestly sharing with me what they know, and I get it. And I'll follow them because I believe not only what they say, but I believe in who they are.
Yeah, and a great coach will enhance your delivery, will bring out your delivery style. He didn't say to me, okay, Darren, hold your hands down. Don't use your hands. I wouldn't have been able to talk. But he helped me be more deliberate with what I said and how I said it. He allowed me to tell dialogue, to speak dialogue of my characters in an authentic way. Without his guidance, I would have been, again, the train wreck. I would have continued as the train wreck. So in review, core 3, humor, engagement, your way, your style. Get some help if that's not your strength, and it's okay. You're not getting paid to be a comedian. You're not getting paid to be funny. You're getting paid to deliver your expertise. But if you get a little enhancement and help in your writing, in your comedy, in your humor, hey, we have a humor boot camp. Come join us for that. We'll show you. We work with Chris McGuire and me, and we'll show you all the different formulas so you can create your own, or get a coach. Get someone to write for you. Chris McGuire is awesome at that. And then core 4 is delivery. Your style, your way. Mark, I remember when you talked about being hot, like there's mundane monotone and there's high energy monotone. We had an NFL football player at one of our events. Great guy, great content, but he was just the whole time, and it was exhausting for us. But what was missing was that time that he came down, looked us in the eye, and asked us a few questions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that point, really quickly, Darren, I want to elaborate very quickly on that, because I know it's easy for us to see vibrant, energetic speakers. In the world of sports, you'll see that also. These individuals who are vibrant, energetic, yes, you can go get him. And there are those who believe that is what an inspirational speaker is supposed to look like. And I'll tell you right now, friends, if you think that way, I urge you to stop and think again. That is what that specific inspirational speaker looks like. That's them, their style, their personality. I remember when I was first starting out, Darren, I would hear speakers who would get the crowd, they play music, and they come clapping hands and get them up and dancing, and they'd say, ready to earn, ready to earn, ready to learn, ready to learn, ready to burn. Yeah, guess it, yeah, say yeah, yeah. And they pump. We are here to pump you up, to pump the audience up. Yeah, okay. And they wanted to pump everybody up. And I thought to myself, that ain't me. My son went to university in Albany, Georgia, and they had the first assembly that were there, and they had this gentleman come up, and he was pretending to be very low-key, Mr. President, faculty, students, I want to thank you for being here today. And he's like, no, it's not my style. Nah, B. All of a sudden, we get this loud hip-hop blaring, and this guy's going off, and this audience is loving it, because Albany State University is an HBCU, historically, one of the historically Black colleges and universities. And he knew that his style really matched that audience. And I thought to myself, I'm a speaker. I'm not so sure I want to be in this environment, because that's not who I am. And I say all that to come back to one point. Just be who you are and deliver your content from your heart, from your essence, and the audience will remember you, because when you are yourself, you're so much more unforgettable.
So if you want some help in any of these areas, get a coach. Doesn't have to be us. Join Stage Time. We do coaching calls every week. So we have step-by-step programs for each of the core 4, as well as we coach every Wednesday on the core 4. So you can get coached from 2 world-class coaches. But understand, it's dribbling. It might not be exciting, but you've got to dribble before you can get the opportunity to throw the 3-pointers. I hope this has inspired you to step back. If you didn't listen to last week, please do. Go back, check out Core 1 and Core 2. This is about Core 3 and Core 4. And Mark Brown, I invite you to close the door.
He's rhyming again. Core 1, Core 2, Core 3, Core 4. Master these rudiments and you will be unforgettable. We'll see you next week.
That didn't rhyme.
Hey there, this is Darren LaCroix. Thanks for checking out this podcast episode on YouTube. If you want all of them, not every one is on YouTube, check out your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss an episode. Keep being a sponge so you can be unforgettable.
Check out StagetimeUniversity.com, where good presenters become unforgettable.